Peace and blessings. Okay, so the other week I was on the What Should I Think About podcast with Steve and Celine, and they asked me some really interesting questions. So I thought if you haven't got Spotify or iTunes or any other places that you can listen to podcasts, I asked if I could upload it to my channel, and of course they both said yes. So I thought I'd upload it for you. Enjoy.
Hi, Dad.
Hi Celine, did you know that you and I are about the same age if you count time living in the world?
What do you mean?
Well, as you know, I left a high control religious group around the time you were born.
So you're in your 20s then?
Well, maybe in my head. The thing is though, because I had all of my beliefs about morals, science, politics, religion, philosophy provided for me, I spent the last 25 years trying to work out what I should think about a whole bunch of stuff and work out what's going on.
No one knows what's going on, Dad.
Well, I think it's about time we did.
What Should I Think About is a podcast that sets off on a lofty goal to make sense of the complicated, contradictory, confusing but wonderful thing we call the world. Hello and welcome to the What Should I Think About podcast. I'm Celine.
And I'm Stephen. And today we've got Brent Lee. And Brent describes himself as a recovering conspiracist and has a YouTube channel called Brent Lee TV, where he talks about things conspiracy theory. We've all been looking forward to this conversation. It's something we've wanted to talk about for some time. So, Brent Lee, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. Very happy to be here.
Great. I see the term conspiracy theory a bit like the word cult, in that it's quite a slippery concept, really. It's different people might have different definitions of it. So it might be worth getting your definition of what we mean by this term conspiracist or conspiracist, conspiracy theories. What are we talking about?
Yeah, okay, well, lots of people, everyone knows what a conspiracy theory is. So let's take, for example, a JFK assassination or something like that.
Yeah.
But where I come from is conspiracism, and it's basically an ideology where the whole world is run by these conspiracies. There's a lot of conspiracies happening, and it forms this whole ideology where it's your whole worldview. And that's what I'm sort of talking about a lot, because that's what I was into. I was into it for like 15 plus years. And I thought, very similar to a religion, the entire world is run in a completely different way. Yeah. You know, that's the difference between a conspiracy theory and actual conspiracism or conspiracy theorists. Yeah. That's the definition that I try to make.
I think that's really useful, actually. That's really useful. We'll perhaps come back to that a bit more. Let's have your story, if that's okay. I know you've talked about it on your channel, so we will be directing people to your channel. But for our listeners, I think it would be nice to get it from you here. So tell us about how you ended up being a conspiracist.
Okay. Well, I've always been interested in politics around the world. Yeah. Was very politically aware. My parents were in the military, so I kind of had to be very aware of geopolitics. Yeah. You know, the first Gulf War was when I was like a teenager, and just always had to be aware just in case something else was popping off around the world. I've lived in different countries. I was very interested in other cultures. So when 9/11 happened, I was very, very instantly thought, okay, that's Osama bin Laden. I knew about terrorism. I knew about the Al-Qaeda. I knew about that type of stuff. I said bin Laden before the news even said it. My mum was like, oh no, what's happened? And I said, that's obviously bin Laden. Right. He blew up an embassy a little while back. That's right. So I was very interested in all that. Then by 2003, the war was going on in Afghanistan, and we were pushing towards a war in Iraq. And I've very much always been against war because, well, my family could be going there. And I was very interested in documentaries and stuff like that. And basically, I was messing around on the internet, looking around at like file sharing places, and I found this little documentary folder on someone's computer,
Right.
and I just downloaded it, and basically it had 9/11 conspiracies and all these other videos in it, and I just started a slow descent into it because it seemed like the world is so corrupt. These might be the answers.
Mm.
It doesn't make sense to be doing this stuff, but Freemasons and corruption, that kind of actually makes sense.
Mm.
It did to me, at least at that time. Like it provided me an answer for what was blatantly going on. And yeah, it took a quite a while, but I just fell down the rabbit hole, really.
Mm.
That's really interesting. So, why would you say? I mean, you've touched on it already, but it's worth just drilling down a bit. Why, for you, were those explanations preferable to the ones that everybody else got? So, when 9/11 happened, news reporters explained what had happened. They do their investigations. The governments obviously also investigate. There's this whole industry around understanding what happened. News programs tell us it was Bin Laden. It was these, was it 12 people that hijacked these planes, and so on, so on, so on. So we've got a lot of information already through news programs. What is it about what you discovered that made that more real to you?
It was, honestly, looking back at it, I can see now that it was the framing of the argument.
Right.
This is what the conspiracists were doing to us. Basically, they'd show what would be called inconsistencies in the mainstream narrative.
Yeah.
So with 9/11, it was like they would show like puffs of smoke coming out of the building and saying that that was a controlled demolition, or that it would come down in a certain way. So how did the terrorists do that?
Right.
That they frame these questions and then give you an answer, and then you're like, oh yeah, actually,
Mm.
that's very right. How does a building come down in free fall? But many years later, you come to realize that it's actually not true, and they've framed their evidence in a way to get you to go that, follow them.
So the mechanism seems to be pose a question that you don't know the answer to, and then provide that answer.
Yeah.
And it's a question that perhaps no one else has asked, but it's suddenly got your interest.
Yeah, because I mean, like with the politics, for instance, at that time we had Bush and Blair. I always got to try and say, like, trying to put context to my story, like the historical context of what exactly was kind of going on at that time. So at that time, it's 2003, and we have Bush and Blair. Now, Bush being a Republican and Blair being Labour. And you're thinking, why are these people all working together? And that was the question that gets posed. And they're like, see, it doesn't really matter. On the left, on the right, they're all corrupt. They work together. It's pretend. It's just like a wrestling match, That's the way that you get told about this stuff. And you do think, yeah, actually, that is weird. Why are they hand in hand? Oh, why does that guy work for Halliburton and this guy works for Halliburton? And it's just the way that they framed it. And it's a very intricate web that they've been weaving for quite a long time.
Talking about the people that are, like you're saying, sort of weaving this intricate web, do you think that, like, because obviously that they at least have to be, I guess, aware of like creating these framing devices and so on that you're saying that then catch other people in. Do you think they're doing that with like purposeful sort of choices, or do you think that's just they're thinking, oh, this is how we explain it, and then they'll understand? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, does it feel malicious, or does it feel like, oh, they're just doing it because they're like, oh, this way they'll get it, if you know what I mean?
No, I do now, looking back at it, seeing who some of those early influencers were and seeing their political affiliations, I see they were actually like pushing a propaganda. Now, a lot of the people like around the first bit of 9/11, the 9/11 Truth Movement, like we had Alex Jones, we had Anthony J. Hilder, and these people were all connected to the John Birch Society, and they don't like Bush. They are conservatives, but they hate the Bush administration and the Reagan administration for things that were going on with like the NRA. And they always used to act like, oh, these people aren't conservative enough. But when we were talking about the 9/11 stuff, that wasn't in it. But now I can look back and I can see actually they were trying to push a different form of conservatism. So yeah, I do think like especially someone like Anthony J. Hilder, Alex Jones, Jordan Maxwell, they've all got these connections to the John Birch Society, which is quite propagandist.
I guess that's why it's like that sort of discovery is helpful in understanding people's biases and why they would be putting stuff out there, and it helps you untangle it a bit.
Yeah, I just thought these people were professionals. That was my problem. I trusted these people. This guy stood here in a suit. Why would he be lying to me? He's trying to expose a lie. It's such a underhanded thing to me. Now I can see it. I was right in the middle of it because they were telling me the things I wanted to hear. They were giving me answers for questions I didn't know the answers to.
Yeah. So, do you want to pick up your story again? So, there's the 9/11 stuff, and that gets you down this rabbit hole. Do you want to tell us how far down you go and what happens after that?
Well, I've always also been interested in like unsolved mysteries, paranormal stories, stuff like that. And I just was like a sponge. I was just so interested in absolutely anything to do with this world. It was just the fringe. At that time, it was the fringe. It wasn't anything dangerous. So it was fun. It was just very, very good, you know. I started going down so many rabbit holes. As I always make the joke is I went down the rabbit hole, went into the hollow earth and came out the other side. You know, like went straight through everything. I ended up, I think, at my worst point, thinking that absolutely everything in the world is being controlled. Everything major is a ritual. I'll send you one of my blogs that I wrote that was about Beltane 2011, and basically what we were saying is over those 4 days it was a massive ritual. There was a 4-day weekend event to us, and this kind of will hopefully put into context for your audience how I thought everything was controlled. On the Friday, the birth certificate of Obama was released. Now, I've never been a birther. I never believed all that stuff. I just thought it was a symbolic gesture. There was a birth, life, death, resurrection ritual. So the Friday was the birth certificate. The Saturday was the royal wedding. The Sunday was Osama bin Laden and Gaddafi were killed, or Gaddafi's sons, sorry, were killed. And on the fourth day, which was a Monday, it was the beatification of Pope John Paul II. Now, those four things just are things that do actually just, happen. It's coincidences. Yeah. But to me, that whole weekend was this massive Beltane Illuminati satanic ritual. And that's how I viewed like the entire world. That was happening all the time. And I think that was probably the deepest I'd ever gone into the rabbit hole.
See, that is really interesting. I mean, obviously, you know that our podcast comes from the perspective of me being an ex-Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah.
And the sensibility of what you're talking about there rings some bells in a way, because Jehovah's Witnesses look at world events and they see them through the lens of Bible prophecy. So, they'll if you look at sort of older watchtowers and so on, but even today they refer back to these times, what happened in 1914 and what happened in 1919 and 1935 and so on and so on. There's all these events that happen. One of the or some of the headquarters were raided and in America, and some of the governing body put into prison, and that relates to this prophecy in the Bible. Where this was going to happen and that was going to happen. So it's all this. There seems to be a desire to link events together to make them make more sense than they do. So it's like this desire we have to make sense of the world. It seems like it's that, but gone to the nth degree, so that we're spotting patterns in absolutely everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's apophenia, which is like seeing things that aren't relevant.
Like seeing smiley faces in taps and stuff like that.
Well, obviously the easiest thing is like seeing a face in a cloud.
Yes.
You can see a face in a cloud. It's just not a real face. It's not relevant. And like the term itself was obviously coined for the beginning stages of psychosis. When someone thinks that like that's about to be someone who's exhibiting psychosis. I think that's really interesting when it comes to conspiracy theorists. People think we're crazy. And you're not crazy just because you believe a crazy thing. Like you said, like with religion, like religion's like pretty wacky. I'm still a Christian, and I just like say to people, like, just please allow me one miracle. All right. I believe in a resurrection. Leave me alone. I'm not going to talk. I don't like to like push my religion or anything like that. It's my personal belief now.
Yeah.
But everything was like kind of based in that sort of worldview. But I also wasn't a Christian when I started. It came to it, and then more understanding of Christianity is what brought me out of it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm jumping ahead. I really want to know, like, that bit now. Like, what did bring you out? Let's just follow on from that. what sort of started that?
All right. Because I believed in the Antichrist, say for instance, and I believed there would be an apocalypse, and there would be the end times, and what they're setting up is, the reign of the Antichrist. When I started looking like, okay, when I came away from a lot of the truther stuff, like I was having a real hard time. I was having a lot of arguments with people in the truth movement because it wasn't what was going on. Didn't make sense. So I kind of stepped away.
Just to, for our listeners, so the truther movement, this is this grand conspiracy that you've kind of been talking about.
Yes, that this is all of us. Today, like the truther movement is pretty much swallowed up by QAnon.
Okay.
Like all the people that you call QAnoners. That's kind of like, it's not the whole truth movement. It's just anyone who's a conspiracy theorist or a conspiracist. Is you kind of join this thing that's kind of loosely termed the truth movement. And I was like quite a big influencer in those early days. But I digress. When I moved away from this stuff because I was having a hard time with the politics with everyone, I dug my head into learning more about my religion. And that was like learning historical context of what was being said in there. And basically, when I learned things like 666 and everything that's like in the book of Revelation, there's a historical context to that. I realized there is no Antichrist coming. Antichrist and 666 meant Emperor Nero. Those people who the initial apostles thought Jesus was about to return any day to them. He was going to come back in their lifetime, not 2,000 years later in our lifetime. and that is one of the things that started bringing me out. I was like, hold on, there's no Antichrist. And hell, there is no hell. Like, it's a rubbish heap that he's talking about, Gehenna. When Jesus says they should be thrown into Gehenna, that is the city's tip. That was actually an actual place where, they burned rubbish and the animals would fight over it. So it's like, that's where the gnashing of teeth comes from, say. Is all these little things. I'm like, hold on, okay, so there's no hell, there's no Antichrist, and there's no Antichrist reign. So what the hell am I talking about? Well, how did none of this stuff can be real, so they can't be setting it up. And that's kind of the process that started really helping me come out of the belief or the ideology.
So how long were you part of this then for?
So I started in 2003. That's when I first got into it.
Yeah.
Within a year, I was proper in. I was dug deep in. I was in all the forums, and I was doing nothing but consuming that information, all the way up to. I didn't really leave till 2018.
Right.
I didn't really reject everything till 2000, or at that point, that's when I moved away from everything. I just logged offline.
Yeah.
At 2018, and then over these last 3-4 years, I was me trying to figure it all out, which is where I really relate to your story. Where at 2018, I just started going, what do I think about this? What should I think about that? What the hell is going on?
Yeah. Brilliant.
So it's a very, very, very long time.
It is, and it's so interesting. I mean, there's so many intersections. I don't know where to begin, really. The language even is quite similar. So what I found is, I don't know if we've missed. Sorry, I'm regressing myself now. I don't know whether we've missed anything in your story that you think is really important, but I've got a few things I'd like to dig into. But is there anything, Brent, that we kind of have missed that we should include in your story?
No, you just go ahead and ask me whatever you want, because there's such a long amount of time. It's hard to really put it into one cohesive story.
I understand.
Like my confessions video that I put out took me so long to try and figure out how do I compile not only the 15 years I was into it, but the 18 years altogether. Like, how do I compile that into like a less than 20-minute video?
You do a good job. It's well worth our listeners checking it out. You do it through answering questions, don't you? Your own questions, really, and I think that's a good way of doing it. I suppose the language that is used by conspiracy theorists or by this grand conspiracy and the language that I grew up with, there's some real similarities there, and I'll talk about some of that. I've also noticed that many, I don't have any proper data to say whether it's more than average or more than you would expect, but it seems to me from my experience of talking to ex-Jehovah's Witnesses that a fairly big percentage do get sucked in. That's probably a bit of an unfriendly word, but do get influenced by a lot of these conspiracy theories, and I think that could be because there's some recognizable things there. So when I was growing up, we were looking forward to the New Order. It was actually, the pictures when you get a Jehovah's Witness knock on your door, well, like it used to. I'm sure it'll happen again after the pandemic. We used to have little leaflets with pictures of paradise on them, and we'd say, that this is going to be the new order where God's going to put everything right. So we were looking forward to the new order of things, where God was going to destroy the wicked. Yes, there was going to be an end times that Armageddon. Well, this was the end times. Armageddon was coming. The prophecies that you talked about, Jesus talking to his disciples, wars, pestilence, food shortages, earthquakes, all of that. These are happening now. So Jesus was all right. He was talking about Jerusalem, but he was actually had this greater fulfillment in our day. And I think for us, we didn't use the term Antichrist very much, but Satan was the ruler of the world. So actually, this is a grand conspiracy. Behind all the politics, behind all the media, behind entertainment, behind all of that is Satan and his demons who are manipulating people to do bad things and to reject God. And God is going to change that when Jesus comes in Armageddon. He's gonna destroy all this wicked system of things and hail in this new order. It's so recognizable to me, the things that you're talking about. So it's not surprising that when Jehovah's Witnesses leave the organization, they might find that actually quite attractive. I don't know whether you've come across.
Language.
Yeah, it does.
It's truth. It says truth because the
truth.
Jehovah's Witnesses refer to their religion as the truth.
Yeah.
So
how long have you been in the truth, and when did he come into the truth? And Stephen's left the truth. That's how they talk.
That's the behavior of a cult, isn't it? At the end of the day, that's where an overlap is because someone's got the answer. And that can be big cults, small cults, political cults, religious cults. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think it ticks a lot of those boxes, and it means that you're looking behind all of the events, and you're seeing something different play out behind the scenes, and this is where all the symbolism comes in. This is where what's in front of you isn't necessarily what's happening. Actually, there's something deeper. There's some hidden knowledge that is being only a few people know this. This is only a chosen few understand what's happening.
Yeah, and when you know it, you want to tell everyone about it.
That's right.
You want to bring people to it. Some cults try and lock themselves away and don't really want to bring other people in. But obviously that's different. Like with Jehovah's Witness, or truthers, you're actually going out and trying to get people to come in because you want them to know the truth. If they know the truth, then we can break this whole thing down.
Yes.
Would you kind of liken what you were part of as like a modern day kind of version of a cult? So obviously, do you know what I mean? The way that the methods it uses and the way that you get involved in it, would you liken it to that kind of experience?
Yes, I definitely would. I've been reading Stephen Hassan and listening to some of the stuff he said. I've been watching and listening to plenty of stuff about cult behaviors and how people work together. And basically, I can see with the truth movement is there's certain similarities. So say the influencers, like the small ones that you get now on Instagram or whatever, all the way up to David Icke and people like that. Sometimes these people get confused for the guru or for the Messiah or something like that by outsiders. But when you're in it, those people aren't that. Those people are the recruiters. They're the ones that bring you in to the cult. Yeah, even up to David Icke. And what the guru is your search for knowledge. That's what you worship. The truth. The info. That's your guru. That's who you follow. So it's a little bit different, but there are very similar psychological factors here. That's what I'm seeing. That's how I think I'd like to try and introduce people to this idea of it being cult-like. Is the info is the guru. Your quest for truth is the guru, and that's really hard to break down.
I suppose again that's the similarity with stuff like, if we're quite willing to call Jehovah's Witnesses a cult, we said they don't necessarily have one clear charismatic leader. They have the organization, but so everyone believes in the organization, the truth, so it's very similar again. So if we can call one a cult, then we can definitely liken the other as well if you wanted to. I don't think
it's cult-like. It's cult-like.
Yeah,
definitely.
Everyone has a right to describe their experience in the way that they feel that they've experienced it as well. So
Yeah, I think for me, I'm coming more to the feeling that for Jehovah's Witnesses, and not everybody will agree with this, but for Jehovah's Witnesses, the cult leader is the God that they create. So it's the Jehovah that is kind of taken out of the Old Testament and um, created or constructed by this religion. So I happen to be an atheist, but I have no problem with people who have a faith in God. But some of the Old Testament, some of the descriptions of the Old Testament God, Yahweh or Jehovah, however you want to describe him, actually are quite this personality that comes across is actually quite like a cult leader. It's
Yeah.
very narcissistic, unpredictable. You've got no choice. You've got to do this, or you're going to die. It's actually quite frightening in many respects, and so that's how I see that. It's just my opinion, and it's just my way of seeing it, I suppose. But I think thinking about cults, one of the things that maybe is different, I don't know, maybe you can tell us about this because I genuinely don't know. So if you try to leave the Jehovah's Witnesses, that's very, very difficult. And they make it very difficult for you by essentially holding your relationships to ransom with your family and friends who are still witnesses. So you could easily find yourself disfellowshipped, which means you're not allowed to talk to your family who are witnesses. You're not allowed to talk to anybody in the congregation. They'll just ignore you. So you're cut off. So that's one of the things that tends to be part of what we describe as a cult, is that if you try to leave, there are very, very difficult elements there for you. When it comes to leave the truther movement, if you like, or this conspiracist way of thinking, what are the penalties? Are there any penalties for you, or were there any penalties for you?
Yeah, there is a social lashback.
Yeah.
Right.
There isn't the difference, obviously, between our experiences is you left an actual organization
Hmm.
where I left a loose knit community of people who shared similar ideas.
Yeah.
But there was a very harsh kickback when I left. No one said anything. A couple people checked up on me and like, "Hey, what you doing? Like, where have you been?"
Mm.
And I just like messaged back and said, "Oh, I just taking some time out making my music and just chilling. All right, so don't worry." So they left me alone.
Mm.
But when I came back in June, or I think it was May or June this last year, and I decided like, okay, I need to pull these people out. I've learned so much. I need to help bring them back out. And I like made a few posts in that, and oh my god, the kickback was just terrible.
Yeah.
But it is just, it's a bit like falling out with friends. That's what it was. I did fall out with friends that I made for decades, over a decade. People that we talked to all the time. We all thought, we were gonna help wake the world up or whatever. But there was some very trollish behavior, really, But once they were done, and then they just like don't want to even talk to me anymore, really. You know.
It's this like reverse. Someone's used it recently. I was watching there's a therapist YouTube channel where he was describing like things as reverse gatekeeping, where they want to like bring people in, but they
Yeah.
want to keep you in. And if you get out the gate, that's when you're out.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
It reminds me of we get in religions you get called apostates. So apostasy is a turning away, and it's considered to be one of the, if not the most heinous of crimes. Really, is to turn away from the faith.
Yeah.
So being an apostate is the worst of the worst, really. So it feels a bit like that. It's one thing just stopping being active, but it's another to actively talk against these ideas. That tends to be where the ire and anger really shows itself, I think.
Yeah, because they all, we all trust each other. we're all friends.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you like, hey friends, this whole thing you believe in is completely wrong.
Yeah.
And it's, people don't like being told they're wrong. People don't like admitting they're wrong.
Exactly. I mean, that was our last episode we did as of recording this. We talked about it because I think it's so interesting, and it's a human. It's part of our psychology. Actually, there was I did a bit of looking at some of the psychologists' ideas around conspiracy theories. I'd be interested in getting your take on it. Some of these, I personally thought that's interesting, and others I sort of felt quite I took against them actually. So I'm interested in the psychology of this, but like cult psychology, I think there's a lot of different opinions, and some of it might not be that well informed. So there was some stuff around. I suppose my first question would be, do you think that there are some personality traits that would make someone more likely to get attracted to cultism or to conspiracism?
Like, to be honest, I don't really know because
Yeah.
I'm not very well versed in things like psychology. Obviously, I've read certain things that are telling me, like, say, narcissism, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where I'm kind of coming from is like, I think it's a social problem.
Yeah.
It's got to be a mix, hasn't it? It's got to be a mix of different things. You might be a certain personality type, but I feel like the social problems create it more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I always say, the world is corrupt. So, these people, the people that believe in conspiracy theories, I always try and tell them, like, yeah, your concerns are very, very warranted.
Yeah.
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 So I wouldn't want to answer out of step if I don't really know anything about the psychologies, to be honest.
But I think that's a really insightful point. There's a guy called Eric Oliver who did a presentation about this, and I mean, he was clearly coming at it from the political perspective. I think it was Chicago University he was kind of coming from. So he said, well, actually, the world is being separated into two types of people: intuitionalists and rationalists. And rationalists are the people that look for evidence, and they tend to want evidence for things, whereas intuitionalists are those people that basically go with their gut. And his analysis is that conspiracy theorists or conspiracy theories attract people who are intuitionalists. In other words, they see something that sounds right to them and they kind of go with it. But I have a bit of a problem with that. I feel that is it's a bit. I was saying to Celine earlier. So in organisational psychology, there's research into people at work and how they might respond to change. And there's some areas of psychology that seem to be suggesting, how can you get your workforce to accept change? Of course, people tend to be irrational, so they tend to worry about change. And my view is, if you've been told that your organisation is being bought out by a bigger organisation, I think it's completely rational to have fears about your job. Whereas, from a management perspective, it's, what are you worried about? Why are you so irrational about this thing? So it feels to me like there's a power element there. If you're in power, if you feel like you've got power, then these people who believe in these conspiracy theories are all irrational. Actually, they should. So it feels a bit elitist to me. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think I believe the same. You hear so many different reasons why someone's a conspiracy theorist from people from the outside. Oh, they're stupid.
Yeah.
Oh, they don't know anything, or they're not politically aware, or all these different things. But like the most intelligent people, can be these conspiracy theorists. The people that came up with this stuff were smart, even like back in the 1700s. Like, it's not I don't think it's I don't ever think it's going to be one or two things. There's so many different points that make people go into something. And it's so just far too easy just to say it's because of this one thing. I don't think that's it's not going to help anyone.
No, and the same goes for cults, isn't it? It's you know, there might be some situational elements. I mean, that's the other question I was going to ask you in terms of, you know, certain times in your life or certain things happen. I think, you know, 9/11 did seem to spawn a lot of ideas, and so that was the situation at that particular time and place seemed to mean that more people had those thoughts.
Yeah, I'd say, like, just quickly, can I interject? Like
Of course.
with 9/11, anyone like who was alive then knows where they were.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where were you when that happened? And did you see 3,000 people die in front of your eyes in one foul swoop? You know, that I think that caused like real bad like social PTSD. Something that we just haven't been able to deal with.
Yeah.
I do think that has like created something. Like conspiracy theories throughout the generations and centuries always explode after something traumatic has happened in the world.
Yeah.
World War I, World War II, Vietnam, 9/11, Iraq War, COVID. Like conspiracy theories just give you an answer, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's because we're all in this shaken state. I know, like 9/11 still hurts me. I look at, I can see it in my head. I watched the second plane hit the tower. I sat there watching it for another hour with my mum talking about it, and we watched one by one both buildings fall. And I'm just sitting there going, I'm watching people die. God, I think like it's a psychological scar on all of us.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting, and I think you're absolutely right. One of the academics who talks about the psychology of it that I think is actually quite interesting is Karen Douglas, who talks about
Yes,
three motives. Have you come across that?
I absolutely love her. I think she's fantastic. I want to get her on my show one day so I can talk to her, because I want to. I'd like to ask her all these questions as well, because I'm trying to figure out, why did I do this? Where did this come from? And she is definitely one of the people who has helped me understand this stuff so much in the past year.
Yeah, and what I like about her approach is that she's not belittling, she's not othering people. She's actually saying, yeah, these are social needs, these are psychological needs that we have to understand what's going on. So, need for knowledge and certainty, a need to feel safe, and avoiding feeling powerless, and a need to feel good about ourselves and to be part of something. Well, these are completely normal social needs that for some are satisfied within a conspiracy theory type system. For some, they're satisfied in cults. The problem with these solutions, if you like, are that they have downsides, which we maybe talk about. And that's the reason that they create problems. But the reason behind it is because we're sense-making machines. We are trying to make sense of the world around us that sometimes seems so senseless. I think the other thing is the political aspect, that the more that people individually feel powerless and feel that there's nothing they can really do to make their lives better, then I think that also plays into these ideas.
Yeah, totally agree. It just gives us an answer. Why is my life so screwed up?
Yeah.
Why have I not got what I should get? Why is things not fair? Because of a 1%, and that can be that can just go into so many different levels.
Going from this to talk about people that have gotten into this sort of movement, what do you think, if anything, like societally we should be doing in terms of like all this stuff is just out there, these particular influencers, because I don't know what would be right to do, because if you try and like, if someone was like, oh, we need to clamp down on this, it would just, to someone deep in the conspiracy theories, it looks like, oh yeah, they're trying to shut us down and stop us doing what we know is actually true. Like what do you have any feelings or wishes that societally we were doing?
Yeah, I guess it's a multifaceted answer to that, really.
Mm-hmm.
What I would definitely say is I do not think that we should shut down their debate.
Mm-hmm.
There should be more people like, myself out there actually trying to combat it, showing why this thinking is completely wrong, especially ex-cult members. People who used to be really deep into this belief, we are the ones that really need to pull people out. So that's one area, to deal with that disinformation. The other things that need to be done, and I don't know how to do this, but the media starts need to be being truthful. Like like we all live in England, and our media is quite biased towards one way. And journalism can be quite sensationalist and about selling a story. And I think that needs to be fixed. And then politicians and businessmen need to stop being so corrupt, because they're helping this happen. People, like, they need to be a little bit more responsible, like with their language. Like recently, Tony Blair was talking about microchips.
Right.
And he was like, oh yeah, you can get the COVID passport on the microchip. And we're like, could you not read the room? Stop talking about these conspiratorial things right now. Like, those are sort of, answers, I guess, but I don't know how to bring them out in the world. All I know is the one bit I can do is try and challenge the influencers of conspiracies and hopefully show the people that are in it that you can come out. You don't have to believe this stuff. There are answers. I'm sorry, but the answers will be a little bit more boring than what you're used to. Because that's what
messy.
I found.
Yeah, I'm messy. So there's no. I think it's that for me is the big thing. It's that there may well be, and there are people doing things under cover of anonymity, and there are conspiracies in the world. We know that because some of them come to light. But that doesn't mean that they're all connected with each other into this grand conspiracy with this Illuminati group pulling the strings at the top. That's a different animal, isn't it, to the fact that some, tobacco firms knew that smoking was killing people. For instance, that's a conspiracy that actually happened, but that doesn't need to be linked to a reptilian overlord.
No. It's not the same ideology, is it?
No.
I'd like to ask you guys, what do you think we should do? What do you think needs to be done? It's like, tell me, because I'm out here trying to do something. To hear you guys would be actually very interesting for me.
Go on, Celine, first.
Well, I was going to say, first thing is that I guess, like, in the same vein, we try and make sure that our content is never prescriptive. So it's very much like, we're going to explore a topic this week and we're going to say things that we think, but we're not going to, present it as the truth. We'll try and make sure we're very clear on that. And we even, like we said, we did an episode on being wrong as kind of like a thing to refer to sometimes and be like, sometimes, we might be wrong and we're going to like bring that up if we are, and try and do that in the open, I guess, being wrong in the open, and make that, I guess, not taboo, and like that it's okay. I guess that was like, that's something that we talked about at the end of last year, and we're trying to keep very present in our stuff. And then,
I'd agree with that. I think one of the things that it feels to me that has gone wrong in our discourse is that we always seem to need certainty. We need to take a position, and I think that's because we want that. I say the royal we, really. We seem to want to be part of a tribe, and it's almost kind of important to be part of a tribe, because that's how you get your clicks or your views, or how you get even your little tweet out there. You need a little following of people who think the same way, who believe the same thing. So you get to the point where it's almost like expected of you to have a position about everything. And often that position has to agree with the tribe that you're part of. But I think it's important to be honest that there's lots of stuff that we don't really understand very well. And, I could be wrong about that. It's like, wouldn't that be great if we could just say, yeah, do you know what? That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe we can try and find out. But even trying to find out doesn't mean that we're ever going to be 100% certain about things. As I've got older, the more I feel, that I'm much less certain about many more things. And yet I've done much more studying, obviously, over the years. So the more I study, the less I know. I suppose one of the other things I'm thinking about, which is how we engage with evidence. So I did have an experience with someone who started and is, as far as I'm aware, deep into these ideas, and I really feel like I failed. I've talked about it briefly with Patrick Ryan from Cult News 101, but I feel that I wanted to help, but I didn't. I didn't help. I didn't. I wasn't able to, and so I've thought about that quite a lot about why that was. One of the things for me is how people engage with evidence, and it seems to me when I ask for evidence, I get sent loads of YouTube links. And that's just not, after studying in universities for 8 years, that's not how you do research from my perspective. So if somebody says to me, I've done my own research, then what does that mean? And for a lot of people, I think that means looking at lots of YouTube channels, maybe reading one or two books, that are not academic books. Whereas for me, research is looking at academic papers, reading about experiments, reading social psychology, and it's a long,
that accessible, I suppose.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. I think is that a lot of this stuff isn't accessible
it's
to
even
average
behind
people.
a literal paywall sometimes.
Absolutely, I agree with you. That's another thing that needs to be done. We need to unlock knowledge.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, when 5G, the first time I heard about the 5G conspiracy thing, that was when I was talking to this person. I thought, okay, so, and I did actually have access to lots of papers. I was part of an institution at the time because I was doing my master's, so it meant that I did have access behind that paywall. So I did a bit of a search on risks of because obviously even when mobile phones first started, I don't know if you remember, I'm an old man, so I remember mobile phones kicking off and everybody worrying about them being too close to our ear because of radiation, and to me it seems like just a kind of extension of that really. So I looked up some papers and thought, what are the risks of these sorts of radio waves in the community, and so I was able to read a paper that talked about any safety concerns and so on, and for me that was a good way of understanding the science to the best of my ability. I'm not a sound engineer or a radiation specialist, but there was no secret, there was no mysterious thing going on. It was a piece of technology that obviously would make the technology companies money, because it means that you can stream more stuff, you can have access to data quicker. It seems like a perfectly normal thing. Is there a possible risk? I guess there's a possible risk of any technology, so let's have a look at what that risk might be. Let's weigh it up, and then you get into this pros and cons sort of situation, but that just doesn't seem to be the way that these conspiracists think. So that's the bit that I would like to help people think about, is how we engage with evidence. How do we know something's true?
I mean, the best subject, surprisingly, that I ever had for learning about that was history, because it was source-based analysis. So we'd be given a source and we'd be told to break down who wrote it, why would they write it, what time was it written, and what was happening contextually. What is their likely bias? Given this information, are there other sources corroborating it? And doing that removed from any sort of because it's history, it's in the past a lot, you can remove it from your current sometimes political situation. That was really useful as a teenager learning about how to break stuff down. I don't know if that's something that everybody gets access to because it's an optional subject, so and that feels like it shouldn't be some people get to do that. That feels like everyone should get to learn how to break a source down.
Yeah, we do need to we need to teach media literacy as well. Lots of stuff just how to know what you're being told is truth and how to find out whether that is, because I think this kind of goes back to the intuition. Does it sound right? Oh yeah, that sounds like it fits. I believe it.
Just running with it.
That's what. But a lot of people this goes back into the sociology problem as well. We ain't got time. We ain't got time to do all that. I'm. You know what? If this expert's going to tell me in 15 minutes on a YouTube video, I'd much rather do that than have to go and study for 6 hours reading a paper that is very hard to understand.
Yeah.
And that's true. That is true. We just don't have the time sometimes, I think.
Yeah. So I think that brings us to the institutions that we used to trust, or maybe we never did have fully, and that might be part of the issue. But nobody actually knows everything about everything. So even PhDs and you talked about astrophysicists and so on. They don't know much about psychology or chemistry necessarily. So everybody has to rely to some degree on institutions and others who have studied and read and so on. So I guess it's about trust in those institutions and in those individuals that seems to have broken down.
Yeah, I suppose another thing that's important is our institutions. They're doing more of it now, and I hope it continues to develop, where a lot of science courses now are doing science communication as a module, and you learn how to communicate with people that are not your direct peers, your science, because it is a skill, and it's one that sometimes you're talking about psychologists earlier, sort of coming across as a bit condescending, and do you know what I mean? It's a skill to be able to take knowledge, distill it down, and provide it in an accessible, manageable way for people that have not spent 4, 6, 8 years, a lifetime doing that subject. So I think that's something that's really important. It's the communication of science to the general populace, making content I guess taking a leaf almost out of Conspiracist's book, but as to how to communicate effectively, but in 15-minute chunks where people can just watch it and get something useful from these institutional groups that maybe you could run with that instead of a paper that you might find really hard to grapple with. Stuff like that I think is really important and really useful, and I am glad to see that being a module that I know that a few people doing physics are taking that module so they can communicate well.
I don't know whether any of those ideas are of any interest there to you, Brent. You asked us a question, so
just gone off on one.
We've done our best to kind of
it's good.
Give our thoughts.
It's not even just to me; it's whoever else is listening.
Absolutely.
Scientists.
I don't know whether. Yeah, I'm sure you haven't heard this one, but I'm going back at the beginning of our podcast. I did tell my story of when I left Jehovah's Witnesses. I got a little bit into. It wasn't called Ancient Aliens back then, but
you met John Anthony West.
I did.
Yeah. That's one of the episodes I listened to, and I was like, I want to talk to this dude.
Because it was back in the day before the big hair guy and the so-called History Channel Ancient Aliens stuff, and I mean, it was interesting, and Graham Hancock, wrote his book, which was I found quite interesting and not particularly sensational, but it did obviously it fed into some of this this alternative world view about ancient civilizations and
Yeah,
and all
I
that
still
sort of
like
thing.
Graham Hancock.
Yeah,
I've been to like 2 or 3 of his lectures.
yeah,
He's signed our books.
yeah.
There's a picture of me and him up there. Like, I think he gets a bad rap. Sorry to interrupt, but
No,
yeah,
no, no. You're the guest. You should interrupt. I should shut up. Yeah. I mean, I think, and in a way, that might be part of it. Is that instead of being dogmatic and saying, anybody that's got anything different to say, we should just shut them down. Anybody that's asking questions that are a bit um, difficult, we should just shut them down. It feels to me like we need to engage with these characters, at least the ones who are reasonable and actually want to engage, are interested in having a conversation, as opposed to I'm sure that there's lots of fringe people that are not interested in that, but where you can, I think answering or at least engaging, because there's lots of questions that they have that are really interesting. And yeah, there is a lot of defensiveness, I think, in certain camps within academia, which means that people's genuine questions about things are just shut down, and that also feeds into this conspiracy theory um, sort of mentality, doesn't it? Yeah, of course they won't answer that question. They won't even engage.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Interesting stuff.
Cool. Well, I've really enjoyed talking to you today, Brent. Your channel is called Brent Lee TV.
Yep.
How long has that been going?
It is only 6 months,
Right.
Oh, cool.
basically. The channel's been around for a long time because I used to make a lot of music in the truth music
Right.
movement and all that. But this new recovering conspiracist arc started 6 months ago, basically, where I started coming out and actually saying stuff about this.
Yeah.
Can I just quickly actually say why
Yeah.
I
Please.
decided to speak out?
Mm.
Obviously, the pandemic, I saw a lot of conspiracies being pushed, and it was quite upsetting to see the beliefs that I held was stopping people from staying healthy,
Yeah.
and that some people were dying because of it. And then the January 6th insurrection happened at the Capitol in Washington, and there were 2 ladies there that died from their beliefs. They both literally believed the same thing I did, except for the Trump stuff. I didn't ever believe that kind of thing. But they believed there were satanic pedophiles running the Capitol and that the deep state was trying to take over. And when they died in front of, especially Ashley Babbitt, because we saw that footage. We saw her get shot in the neck by the police officer, which I do believe it was a correct choice to make from the police officer's point of view. But when I saw her drop and I found out about her beliefs, I thought that could have been my partner. I could have been stood right next to her and we could have been doing that. And I just thought at that point, I need to say something. I can't just walk away and not say something. This conspiracy stuff is way too mainstream. It's become far too dominant in politics, and people are actually dying. People are getting hurt from it, and they're getting hurt for something that isn't real. But I know how deeply they believe in these things. And I just decided that day I need to do something. and I didn't quite know what to do. But it took 6 months for me to figure out, to start how to speak out about it, basically. And now, a year later, here we are.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Well, I think it's great that you're doing it, and it's, for us, it's such an opportunity to talk to somebody that's actually come out of it. How common is that, Brent? Is that something that is, obviously it's happened to you, so it is possible. But how many people get out of this?
Okay. The truth is, like, a lot of people do come out of it.
Yeah.
I've been in it, I was in it for over 15 years. And like, the amount of people that I've known over the years that have sent me messages now that were like, oh yeah, I left that like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, such and such.
Yeah.
People do leave it. The thing is they don't want to tell people.
Yeah.
They just disappear.
Right.
They just delete their social media and carry on with their life. They don't want to. It's publicly shaming to them. It's such a hard position to be in. Like, your last episode was about being wrong. My entire message right now is about I was wrong. Like, and it's still hard. It's still really hard to be stood here speaking to people, knowing that other people are going to listen and they're going to make all these judgments about me because I was wrong. Like, simple. But in a lot of people, which is, fair play to them, I would have walked away too. I tried to.
Yeah.
Change your life, carry on, do something different. But I think, surprisingly, there are a lot of people that come away from it. You just don't hear from them.
That's interesting. Yeah. And again, that's very similar to leaving a cult or a high control group. It's something that's taken me a long time to really talk about. I wanted to hide it when I first started going to work, trying to develop my career. I definitely didn't tell people about being an ex Jehovah's Witness. Just absolutely no chance. So it's not in your interest to tell outsiders about it, and it's also, you kind of don't want to, well, as you talked about being trolled and so on with your community that you just left. They don't want to know either. So you everything about it says, let's just get on with life, keep my head down, and not say anything.
It's much easier.
That's why it is really like impressive, and like I do think what you're doing is really important. Because I was just talking to my housemate before I came out, and she was like, "Yeah, I bet that is something that is incredibly helpful, and probably more people, if they could do that, that would be amazing. Because if you are on the process of starting to watch those videos, yours might come in recommended because it's related content, and you could stop people getting into it even, and that's always, I suppose, an easier process than the coming out from being in for a while. So I mean, just that in itself is really important. So I think multi-leveled, really good what you're doing.
Yeah, it's always a question, isn't there? How much you should engage with it, because it gives credibility against. If you don't engage with it, that's the only message that people hear if they're looking for stuff. So, yeah,
that's why I don't agree with like deplatforming or anything like that. I think you just have to have the right person to challenge it.
Yeah,
there's people I come across that are trying to challenge these people, and they are just not doing it in the right way, and they are not being very helpful.
Right.
They go in and the conversation gets shut down. I found over these 6 months, specifically over the last 3 months when I've been really like pushing forward, it's surprising how quickly the conversation opens up when the person I'm talking to realizes my journey was genuine. They'll get over the first initial reaction of calling me a shill or whatever. But when I can prove to them, I really believed what you believed, I really was one of you, the conversation opens up. They are intrigued. They're like, how did do you know all that and then walk away? How did this happen? And I think that intrigue is definitely what will help me get into them and bring them back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, anything we can do to help, we're here for you. Yeah,
we'll put everything in the show notes for today as well, like your key videos and stuff like that, and and we'll throw any links that you have in the show notes.
Thank you. It's just YouTube and Twitter.
Yeah,
I generally stay away from Facebook. It's way too toxic for me.
Yeah,
I've got too much of a background there. So I just tend to stay away from there. But if everything is YouTube or Twitter at Brent Lee TV.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I'm sure, if you're up for it, and we come across a subject that we want to get some expert advice on, it'd be great to get you back again to talk about your insights. It's something we want to do. We've been interviewing lots of different people, but now we'd like to kind of focus in on some specific subjects.
I can be Brent Lee, conspiracy consultant or whatever.
Excellent.
Correspondence.
That's the man. Yeah. Conspiracy correspondent. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, that'd be really great. As I said, it's something that we've wanted to talk about. Obviously, I think everybody's aware that sometimes people's attitudes are very raw, and people get very emotional about these subjects, from both sides, I guess. We really do try to engage with all of the questions in a good faith way. So hopefully people appreciate that. But yeah, I'd like to talk more about some of these ideas on future episodes, if you're up for it.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Awesome stuff. Okay,
great.
Thank you.
Brent Lee, thank you very much for being on the podcast today. It's absolutely brilliant.
Thank you. Bye.
What Should I Think About is an Evil Sheep production.